Hello and welcome to episode number 93 of Week in Review. My name is Sean, and on this week's show, we're going to talk about Call of Duty Modern Warfare. We'll have a little snack. I'll tell you about the streams happening over on twitch.tv/ShaunosaurusRex, and we'll look forward to this week's new releases. Before we talk about Call of Duty Modern Warfare, let's have us a little snack. Now, in an ideal world, this would be where Doritos puts out something really cool, because Doritos and Mountain Dew always have the get this bag and get double XP in the new Call of Duty title, and they always bring out some weird, not Call of Duty flavors, but they always bring out some weird, like, Mountain Dew Game Fuel flavors and stuff like that, and I couldn't actually find the Mountain Dew Game Fuel by the time this episode needed to be recorded, so I wasn't able to have that. And then Doritos didn't even have, like, any super weird flavor. They just have all their normal flavors branded with Call of Duty stuff. But fortunately for us, Lay's came through in the clutch and delivered us a bag of chips that are kind of a weird flavor, but this time is at least a normal flavor, unlike the fried pickles and ranch, which was really weird, and then the deep dish pizza, which was okay, but it was basically just a marinara chip. As a professional esports #1 quintessential gamer junior, I am now declaring that Lay's are the chips you eat before you discuss Call of Duty. You can eat Doritos to get the double XP for the Call of Duty, but before you discuss it or review it, you must eat Lay's. That is now the declaration as given to you by the Quintessential Gamer Jr. Right here on Week in Review. So, without further ado, let's try some Lay's grilled cheese and tomato soup chips. And if you know me, you know that I love three things food-wise: deviled eggs, Mountain Dew, cereal, pancakes, waffles, and grilled cheese. Those are the things that I love. I don't necessarily eat it with tomato soup because that sounds like something a crazy person would do, but I do dip it in ketchup, which seems like something that a different style of crazy person would do. So I am very, very excited to try these out. I can't wait. They've been sitting downstairs on the counter for like 2 or 3 days now, where I look at it and I'm like, I just need to record this and then I can eat them if they're good. So let's find out if they're good by cracking open the bag. Weird thing that happened though, when I bought this bag is super packed with air. I'm sure that's great on the audio. I bought a bag of like regular Lay's because I was like, man, regular Lay's sound pretty good. I thought it was going to explode. It was just so packed with air. I was like, oh god, I should probably grab a different bag. But then I was like, but I want the bag that might explode. Let's make this walk home from the store a little more interesting. Will I end up with a backpack full of Lay's and me going, god damn it, why did I buy that bag that was so close to exploding? It didn't happen. It was totally fine. Shocker. I was dramatic. But they made it home in one piece, and now we're finally going to try it after that very long, and I'm sure incredibly interesting tangent is what keeps you around watching this show week after week. Okay, here we have them. They don't smell great. Okay, I'm looking forward to them. Here's what they look like in the bag. There you go. That's what they look like. So we'll pull this one. Yep. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I really like these chips. They are very good. The cheese really cuts through. It tastes like it's toasty. There isn't a ton of the tomato soup flavor, which is actually good because that could theoretically like just kind of overpower everything and kind of end up in the deep dish pizza situation where it's like it's supposed to be deep dish pizza, but it also just tastes like marinara sauce. It's this one flavor that interrupts everything else. To be fair, like a chip that is mainly based around cheese is pretty easy to get me to like because I really enjoy cheese-flavored things, and that makes it all the more important that the tomato doesn't completely overpower everything, but I think they hit a really good mix of it. I like these chips a lot, and I would like to continue eating them, but we have the rest of the show to get to, so I'll just have to do that later. But seriously, go check these out. They're really good. Now that we're all full up on Lay's potato chips, and we can now officially talk about Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I'm only going to talk about the campaign in this review because I didn't play any of the Spec Ops mode, and I played very little of the multiplayer. The multiplayer is Call of Duty to the nth degree. If you pay attention and you've played Call of Duty before, this is a continuation of that. You have your classes, you tweak your weapons, you rank up and get new unlocks and stuff like that. It has almost the perfect carrot at the end of the string to get you to keep going through the motions with that. it is what it is. I don't think there's anything revolutionary about the multiplayer aspect of it. I don't think it does anything that makes me not want to play it. It's just kind of there. It wasn't really what I was feeling. I played it for about 2.5 hours or so. It's fine. I liked some of the maps. That's about all I can really say to the multiplayer. I also haven't played very much of Call of Duty multiplayer over the last several years anyway, so for me to come in and be like, this stuff works and this stuff doesn't work, doesn't feel genuine, because I don't know really what it's changing or what it's keeping the same other than the overall structure of ranking up to get new unlocks, to keep ranking up to get more unlocks, to get better. And if you enjoy that, you're gonna probably enjoy this. I feel fairly safe and confident in saying that. So with that, let's talk about the campaign. I actually quite enjoyed the campaign. The coverage of the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare was really interesting leading up to the release. There was a lot of preview events that talked about how dark it was and how it was ripped from the headlines, and that sort of like, is that going to play well in a video game? So from a tonal perspective, it definitely is an interesting change in pace. It is a lot darker. It is a lot more sinister in a lot of ways. It doesn't feel quite like the pulpy explosion stuff from the past, but it still has that. And I think at the end of the day, that's what I walked away from this game feeling, was like, they want to take it in a new direction. I think they succeed in taking it successfully in a darker direction in a way that didn't feel like it was exploitive of anything, but felt like it was very grounded, quote unquote. But I have a hard time saying that because it still is a Call of Duty game, and it still has to be what that means. And what that means is typically big action set pieces. I think the greatest strength of this game is actually its length. It's only about 5.5 hours long. That's how long it took me to complete the game. And that, while that sounds like that might be a negative because people really like to say, oh wow, this is a 40-hour campaign, Call of Duty really struggles with its pacing sometimes, and this goes back to the original Modern Warfare trilogy for me personally, where there are just so many times where games don't need to be the length that they are, and they're not even that long to begin with. Like, I think Call of Duty 4, the original Modern Warfare, is only like 7 or 8 hours. I still think that's 2 hours too long, because what happens is, in Call of Duty, for me, in my head, kind of compares to the Transformers film franchise, where there are way too many characters doing way too many different things, and I lose track of stuff, and it slowly becomes this process of like, I don't know what you're doing, and I don't know why we're here, and I don't understand why I should care, so I just kind of don't care. And once I hit that point of like, I don't know what's going on, I really stop caring, and I just become annoyed with the gameplay mechanics. Or in the Transformers film franchise, I just get really bored with what's going on because it's just a bunch of explosions for no real reason. So for the Call of Duty Modern Warfare in 2019 to run 5 hours, to only have about 8 or 9 characters that you need to keep track of, for me to walk away going, I understand everyone's motivation, I understand where they are, what they're doing, and why they're doing it, is a huge win. It kept me engaged through parts of the game that I thought were actually kind of boring. There were a couple of missions back to back. One of them just feels like a pretty generic like first-person shooter level, and then another one is a pretty long sniper level that just doesn't have great pacing, where they kind of teach you how a sniper rifle works, which is cool, like great. I'm glad that you implemented that in the game. But then you're kind of just waiting, and I understand that the idea would be to show like, you just kind of have to wait sometimes, but at the same time, for the game to fall into so many of its own tropes, for it to have such a lengthy and kind of boring level in it, feels weird. And there was a point in this game early on in like the first half or so, where I was feeling like kind of bored. Like I liked the characters and I was kind of engaged with what they were doing, but I didn't like the level design enough to like kind of keep me going. That was until the final level I played on the first part of the campaign stream that I did. It is the single most effective and most interesting piece of a Call of Duty game I've ever played. Like, it's emotionally engaging, it is resonant, and it is, even though it has probably my least favorite gameplay sequence in it, it puts you in the shoes of a character who is severely underpowered, and how do you work with that idea? And how do you get out of that situation when there is very little to no hope? What is kind of a missed opportunity is that it's at this point where they introduce the aspect of one character's past, Farah's past, And they don't go enough with the idea of what happens when a brother and a sister, two characters, experience the exact same scenario, but go into radically different paths. I thought that was something that they could have done a little bit more with, but still, it was really interesting. And that sequence was enough to push me through the rest of the game. And that's where I think this Call of Duty really separates itself from other Call of Duties and where that length becomes so important. Once it hits this climactic series of events and once things really start to build to like, okay, here is our final mission, this is what we need to do to take down this situation and make sure that it gets stopped, it doesn't take that long. Like I remarked at the beginning of the second part of the campaign stream that I did, that I was like, okay, if this game has, let's say, 5 levels left and it lasts another 2 hours, perfect. I know exactly what's going on. I know exactly what I need to do. And where the past games have struggled is the padding of length, where stuff just kind of happens where it doesn't need to happen. And that's always really frustrating to me. This game doesn't do that. When I said that, I didn't know that there were only 5 levels and 2 hours left, but there were exactly 5 levels and 2 hours left. That is fantastic. For the game to build to this explosive climax, hold that point and just end when it needs to end is absolutely fantastic. I never felt like I was like, oh, this is taking too long. There were some gameplay segments that weren't great. There was one specific encounter in the final level that I was like, this is really dumb. I know why you're putting this in here because it's a callback to the other Modern Warfare games, but I didn't think it fit here because it's the final level and you would never introduce these characters until now, and then the game ended 30 minutes later. I was like, okay, this just didn't work particularly well. But overall, I thought it was a very good experience. I think it struggles a little bit in the first half of the game where it kind of bored me a little bit, but once it picked up the pace, I was really engaged through the rest of it, and that's great news. The other interesting aspect that was talked about in the lead up to the release of this game was these events where you have to make decisions. So like if someone's running over to a crib, are they grabbing a gun or are they grabbing a baby? These are largely pointless and typically just fail the mission because you will kill a civilian or whatever, and it's like, yeah, you don't do that, and then it just starts you over at the level. So it didn't feel like it actually had any sort of impactful moment. It wasn't like, hey, you just fucked up, you got to live with it and move on with the level, which is what the game should have done. And I think they just made a little bit too big of a deal of it for it to not really matter in the end. On a technical level, this game looks absolutely fantastic. It doesn't run perfectly. I used an Xbox One S. I've read reports that the game is crashing Xbox One X's. I didn't have any crashes or anything. It ran fine. It kind of stuttered and hiccuped every once in a while. There was some minor screen tearing, but the cinematics looked absolutely terrific. In-game, it looked great. It played really well. It plays how you would expect a Call of Duty game to play. They have nailed that formula. It is one of the best, if not the best, playing first-person shooters on the market. Just, it feels so good to play. If I do have one gripe about the game, it is the AI, and that is both the enemy and your teammate AI is not great. Your teammate AI isn't super accurate or helpful, it seemed. It seemed like they were just kind of there firing bullets, and maybe they'll actually hit somebody, but it typically wouldn't really happen. And I know that that's probably like the cinematic aspect of Call of Duty coming through, where it's like, you have help, but you're really doing everything, or whatever, who fucking cares. On the AI side, they routinely ran into your teammates, and then your teammates just wouldn't respond, and it was a really weird thing where it seems like you have 2 people on either side. Once they get to a crossroads part, they should turn back to each other and engage that way. But there were a number of times where your AI teammates would advance too far, or the enemy AI would pull too far into your area. And then all of a sudden you're getting shot from behind, and then there's 6 other people over to your right, and why aren't you shooting the enemy that's 15 feet behind me? It's not like a game-breaking thing. It's just a minor annoyance where it's I feel like this should be just a little bit different. There was one time where I walked into a building and there was my teammate sitting here and an enemy right here, and this person was shooting forward instead of in this direction, and I just looked at it, I was like, why is this way? It wasn't the biggest deal in the world, just kind of an annoyance. And for those 2 problems to be really my only issues with the game is really great. And for me to look at this game and go, I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to further installments in this franchise, because I'm assuming that they're going to continue down this path with Modern Warfare 2 and so on and so forth, because it's their aside from Black Ops as their most recognizable like subtitle franchise, Call of Duty's history is a little bit weird, where it was Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, and that game was such a hit that they continued that franchise. And there was also the time when they really started switching between Infinity Ward and Treyarch and going back and forth. And it's even more interesting to look at it and go, people really didn't like the Treyarch games, and then all of a sudden the B team, Treyarch, became the A team by the time Call of Duty Black Ops 4 rolled around, and Infinity Ward kind of needs a hit, and hopefully this is it for them, because I'm actually excited for the next installment in the franchise. So in that regard, it's actually kind of a pleasant surprise for me to make it all the way through the game, and I'm glad that I continued to play through the mission that I continued to play through. Otherwise, I would have had a much harder time pushing myself to finish this game. But that mission right around the midsection of the game is really game-changing for this title, and I really liked it. Overall, I think it's an interesting direction to take the franchise, make it a little darker, make it a little more ripped from the headlines. I think that's interesting. I think they did a good job with it. There's some stuff that doesn't quite work exactly the way they seem to want it to, namely the, like, did you make the correct hairpin decision or hair trigger decision? That I thought was a little overblown and playing through the game, because a lot of those situations are instant fails. But I like the story. I like the characters. I would like to continue with this group. I thought they were engaging and interesting. And again, I can't stress enough how helpful the 5-hour timeline is, how the pacing is really tight for this game, and it never felt like anything was terribly padded out. There were a couple of gameplay sections that I didn't really like. There were some issues with the AI. The game didn't run 100% of the way great. It had some technical hitches here and there, mainly in like screen tearing, and it stuttered a little bit in some of the cutscenes, but the game looked great. It played well. It's a good game. I really like it. Obviously, if you are buying a Call of Duty game for the campaign, you're probably not going to get your money's worth out of this, but it does have a campaign mode. It does have co-op, or Spec Ops rather, excuse me. And it does have the multiplayer suite to it. So it is overall a full package, but I feel like if you know Call of Duty games and you are a single player gamer, you're probably not playing them or buying them specifically for the single player stuff. But I think this is a campaign worth experiencing, and I really enjoyed my time with the campaign. Finally, on this week's show, we'll take a look at this week's new releases. The Wizard of Oz is getting a 4K release for its 80th anniversary. They actually brought it back into theaters. AMC had it at their Dolby Theater, which is their like big, super loud, awesome theater. So they brought that back for its 80th anniversary, and now it's going to be re-released again in 4K. So check that out if you like The Wizard of Oz. I think I saw it for like the 75th anniversary in 3D, and it was pretty cool. Probably should have gone down to see it for the 80th in a format that I actually like, because 3D is fucking garbage. In theaters this week is Harriet, and this week's game is the Disney Classic Collection Aladdin and The Lion King. They took two favorites from the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis era, and they brought them back. They remastered them, put them on the same disc. They have a bunch of different versions of the game. Like The Lion King has the Genesis and the Super Nintendo version of it, and then Aladdin has the Game Boy version of it, a new like Final Cut version, some demo from a trade show. So it's a pretty cool and interesting package to look at, and that comes out on Tuesday, and I'm looking forward to checking it out. I won't be able to get it day one, but in the near future I will be playing it. As for the streams this week, it's going to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I'm going to do something special for Halloween, and you're definitely going to want to tune in for that, because it's going to be really awesome. And then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are all going to be The Outer Worlds, provided I like that game. I should probably come up with a backup plan just in case. But that's what you have to look forward to over on twitch.tv/ShaunusHorusRex. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. If you like the content, you can scroll on down and hit subscribe. You can also scroll down a little bit more and leave me a comment if you would like, and you can tell me what you thought about the grilled cheese and tomato soup chips. You can let me know what you thought of Call of Duty Modern Warfare if you played any of it. Be sure to check out the streams over on twitch.tv/ShaunusHorusRex Thursday through Sunday, and be sure to check back every Tuesday for more Week in Review right here. We'll see you next week.